This will be a great one. Satan's little helper is here first. Excellent. Excellent. 10,000 pine points to Satan's little helper. Formerly, what was your name formerly? Holy Shift, right? Yeah. Claude Avilas. Good to see you here. 5,000 pine points. Moon Shoes, there you go. Yesterday you were a loser. Today you're a winner. Third place winner. 1,000 pine points to you. And highways and byways. Sorry, you're not welcome here. Please leave now because you're the biggest loser. It's okay to make people cry once in a while. I thought I would start a little bit earlier. Robert Price is going to be here in 8 minutes. Hopefully. I sent him the link. But I thought I would start early because once he gets here, it's going to be really tough for me to talk about these highly charged topics and focus in on what he's saying and what you guys are saying. So if you have questions, and I noticed in my community tab when I posted yesterday that this will be happening, that some of you had some great questions. And tag me now, and I'll get these questions ready beforehand. But some of you know what you want to ask before you even hear what he has to say, right? How is this going to go, you guys think? Is this going to be like, what's the polite way of saying this? A cluster? No, can't say that. No, can't say that. Is this going to be terrible? Is it possible to have a calm, reasonable, rational discussion about racism, CRT, bigotry, affirmative action, without emotions getting high? I hope so. I hope we can do it. Part of the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm a contrarian by nature. I tend to do the opposite. So if you want me to do something, tell me to do the opposite. I'll give you a little insight. So someone said on Twitter yesterday, or I found out that Robert Price should be deplatformed. So what do? I platform him. There you go. That's what I do. I'm not the type of guy who, like, there's a crazy guy named Steven Anderson. He thinks gays should be, if you could press a button to kill all gays, he would do it. I think he said that, right? Yeah, I'm quite sure he said that. He's welcome to come on my channel too. I should have James Mason on. My question is the price right? Is the price is right? Someone asked a question yesterday about Price's views on church and state. What he thinks about Christianity in the United States, what they should be allowed to do or stuff. Something like that. All you need to ask him is if he believes his race is superior. If he says no, he's not a racist. Jake the Snake, I think you're right. I think it's as simple as that. Then the rest is just the appearance of racism, right? Or saying racist things as a non-racist, right? Dr. P's thoughts on Trump's recent comments about Putin. I don't know. Like, I'm going to ask him about Trump, but do we want to really get into current political things? Maybe. I don't know. Don't give me pine points. I really don't want any more than 166 I already got. See, I like that. I appreciate that about you. Come on, tag me if you have any questions. I'm going to see if I can find that question from yesterday, which I thought was really good. Oh, here we go. By Zachary Lahoki. Also be sure to ask him what he thinks about what the religious rights of Christians should be. That's a good question. Why is it a good question? Because I think it will really tick off the people who want to deplatform him when they hear he is not anti-Christian bigot at all, but a tolerant, gentle, wonderful person. Thanks for doing this, Doug. Yeah, the complaint of deplatforming him is more about racism, not Christian bigotry. Or is it just bigotry in general? Probably. But yeah, I like that question. What does he think the religious rights of Christians should be here in the US? I think I know his answer. I think I know his answer for almost everything he's going to say. I think. But I hope to be surprised. Did I get a chance to look up Marcus Rogers? No, I haven't. I'm a busy boy. Ask him what's the best evidence that Apostle Paul. No, Douglas Wise, this is not what this stream is about. This stream's about the juicy stuff, not about whether the Apostle Paul was a real person. I know his answer to that. No. Does he like Muslims? Question for Dr. Price. Do you like Muslims? Do you like African Americans? Do you like Mennonites? Tell me who you like and who you dislike, so we all know whether or not we should have you on our YouTube channels. For the apathetic people like me, can you explain what the hubbub is all about? Yeah, great question, humbling question, and it's good that we can start early and get this out of the way so we don't waste time. The hubbub's about, for years, there's been pressure against Dr. Price about some of the comments he's made about issues like racism, affirmative action, feminism, things like that nature. And recently it's come to my attention that my guess is it's very, 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 very few people, but some people say that he should not be on atheist channels like mine because of this. That's what the hubbub's about. And so, of course, I do the exact opposite in the hopes of raising the rancor of those who disagree with me, to get them emotional and passionate so they want to cry in their room for 2 hours, because that's what I like to do. Is Trump an atheist? Probably. But how would Bob Price know that? What did Trump say? My favorite book is 1 Corinthians. It's 1 Corinthians. Ask him why he doesn't like black people. So, Dr. Price, how long have you known you hate black people? Come on, Peter W. This is going to be really good, guys. I think even the people who really dislike some of the things Price says, they're going to smile at least once during this live stream. I'm going to get them to smile. Oh, and I'm so dangerous because once I get you to smile, you're going to be more open to the things I say or Dr. Price says, and then you're sunk. And then you're going to be like a racist like the rest of us, right? Oh, you know what? It's a good question that you guys haven't asked yet, but I thought of it. Define racism. There we go. We got to know our terms. And why is racism bad? Articulate that. Oh, that's one thing most people don't think about, right? They say, oh, yeah, racism is bad, but why exactly? Get people to articulate it. Oh, it gets them thinking. I love when people think. I subscribed to your channel specifically to watch this video after Derek mentioned it. Yeah, I'm going to leave Derek out of this. Can you have a bloviation alert ready? I'm pretty good with Dr. Price. I know Dr. Price likes to bloviate a little bit. Ask him his definition of a woman. Oh, great question. I'll tell you my definition. Not a complete definition, but I'll give you at least a partial definition. A woman is someone with a uterus, ovaries, menstruates once a month, at least most of her life. I don't want to say the negative, so I don't want to say doesn't have a penis, but I'll say has a vagina, and tends, not always, but on like the spectrum, has more feminine features than masculine. That spans throughout all history. Can give birth, has at least the potential to. Some women are infertile. Except IVF, beautiful thing. If you're an infertile woman, please do in vitro fertilization with a committed partner. And I tell you, it works. Worked for me and my wife. Don't listen to these Roman Catholics that say it's a sin. Don't do it. A woman has flaps and folds. Yes, there you go. These are partial definitions. It's not complete. Racism is bad because you treat people based on traits they can't choose rather than character. That's why reverse racism is also wrong. Well, see, I don't like. It's interesting you said reverse racism, because I would just call affirmative action racism, not reverse racism. But yeah, I like what you said, Nathan. Racism is bad because you treat people based on traits they can't choose rather than their character. Yeah, that's a Martin Luther King sort of definition or explanation. Ask him if he thinks Michelle Obama's a woman. Well, I can understand why some people think she's not. Call me crazy, but I mean, I love those broad shoulders. Love them. Of course, of this world, there are women with a uterus that don't menstruate. Of course. My goodness. PineCreek is burning down the atheist experience bridge today. Yes, I am, Bob Smith. I've known for many years that I would never be welcome on the atheist experience because I'm a type of guy who's not a racist. I mean, if I see a black woman saying stupid things, I will say, you're saying stupid things. I'm not the type of person to say, oh, you're a black woman, so now I can't say this. Okay? I treat people equally. I treat all people bad. See? Badly. My mom learned me English real good. When it comes to trans issues, I take Aaron Ra's epistemology in mind. If you can't show it, you don't know it. Okay. I'm not seeing a lot of questions here. Oh, you know what? Someone fill me in with the Randall Rouser thing. What did Randall Rouser say that some people called an atheist? I mean, a racist. Cultastic. This is disgusting talk. What's disgusting talk? Oh, we should talk about. I think talking about Will Smith is a good place to start because it actually involves a lot of these issues. I think if Will Smith was white, if Will Smith was, what's his name? What's Angela Jolie's dad's name? Is it Voight? What's his first name? If he would have walked up on stage and slapped Chris Rock, he would have been escorted out. Will Smith does it, wins an Oscar. Ask if Will Smith was justified. Yeah, I'm going to ask that. We'll talk about Will Smith because that's, I guess if we talk about Will Smith, we have to talk about Putin, right? To be fair. Why does the religious right persecute trans and gay people? Well, there's a assumption in your question that they do persecute trans and gay people. If there's just one case of someone who leans left persecuting a trans person, what say you then? I'm against, and it also depends what you mean by persecute. Because a lot of Christians would say, I persecute Christians on my channel every time I go live. Have I done something wrong? Because what I'm doing is I'm taking away their hope, meaning, and purpose. So let's say I were to say, trans women are not real women, and that trans person views that as a persecution. What wrong have I really done other than maybe hurt the feelings of the person? But I guess a lot of people view that hurting of feelings as just as bad as punching people. I don't. A woman is anyone. What is it? Oh, I lost it. Ask him his thoughts on Trump supporters storming the Capitol building. Yeah, that's a good question. What's a better question, though? Why is it that there's some really big Trump supporters who were there at that time, like listening to Trump's speech or whatever, and they chose not to storm the Capitol building? How do you explain that? See, that gets to personal responsibility, right? Very uncomfortable questions are fun. People die because of this rhetoric. Hey, Cultastics, on your keyboard, if you right to the left of the letter A, there's a caps lock button. You just press that, and then that will fix your mistake of doing all caps. Yeah, great question, Man Bear Peg. What time is it? What? He should be here. What's going on? Uh-oh. I didn't realize it's 8 after the hour already. I'm on it. I hope he comes. Thanks for the donation, Kent Hoven CPA. I'm not sure if side 9 is gone. I don't think so. He was on no, he's definitely not. He's back. Check Revealed Apologetics. He was on there the other day. Royal Wolf, he's late, so he's running on colored people time, so he's not racist. Whoa. You know why that's funny, though? Because my wife is of Caribbean descent, and she would laugh right now. She would say, "You're right. When it says show up at 11, that means 11:15." There we go. And then there's some people say, "Oh, that's racist." Yeah, I'm out of here. There we go. He's here. Whew, I thought you wouldn't make it.
Oh, sorry. I didn't expect the link to show up in mail. I was waiting to look at a messenger.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you made it. Do you remember me?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Of course. Oh, that warms my heart. Yeah, I think you were on about 5 years ago.
That long ago? Wow.
I know. Maybe it's 4. And were you on with Carrier or Dennis McDonald? I forget. Do you remember?
I don't remember it being anyone else.
Or was it just
Who
you?
knows my memory? That's the way I seem to remember it. I could be wrong though.
No, I think you're right, because I think it was I had a little mini debate with Carrier and Dennis McDonald. Yeah, maybe you weren't there for that one. But I was going to ask you, did you hear about this debate between Lacona and Ehrman?
That it's coming up if they had it already. I don't know.
Yeah, it's coming up. But did you hear they're having this long 7 hour debate?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that before we get into the really juicy stuff. Um, do you think anything new is going to be said?
I doubt it seriously, and I know and respect both of them. I think they're both good guys, and they certainly are very well read and erudite. But I personally think that they will be able to debate something I don't take for granted because they are sort of in the same paradigm that one defined by 18th century Protestant rationalism, where there is an agreement, arbitrary, I think, that the Gospels, at least with the resurrection narratives, are to be accepted at face value until the empty tomb, and that even that is a true detail. But the only place to debate is why was it empty? Did was the disciple were the disciples the ones who stole the body? Did the Sanhedrin take it? Did Jesus actually rise, etc., etc.? And that I think is it'll be interesting to hear what Bart says because he used to assume that the empty tomb was genuine history, but didn't think it meant the resurrection. Now I believe, after some time now, I believe he has thought better of that and said, now I think that is part of the legend. So I'm not sure, but it's unstable because Mike was infamous for suggesting that I believe that the Night of the Living Dead episode in Matthew, where the dead emerge from their graves and show up trick or treating in Jerusalem, that is perhaps allegory or something. Boy, that poor guy got jumped on by all the fundamentalists. So I don't know. I mean, they both are starting from this traditionalist base, something not surprising since Bart studied under Bruce Metzger, who, though temperamentally not a fight and fundy, was virtually a fundamentalist in his beliefs about the
When
Bible,
you
he
when you
says.
say that they're both starting from a traditional base, you're basically saying that they're both giving the text the benefit of the doubt on almost
Yeah,
everything. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
at least in regards to the Easter stories. I know Bart would say that a whole lot of the rest of it is fanciful, but at least until recently, he was arguing that, oh yeah, there must have been an empty tomb and all that. Now I believe he does not, uh, but just be advancing one notch, just as Mike did with the allegorizing of the righteous dead returning. So I don't know, but their base is a conservative evangelical one that goes back to what I think are arbitrary and apologetic assumptions about the text, which I mean we ought to know enough now in the bounds of critical scholarship to know you can by no means take that for granted. And the problem was put no better than in a cartoon I often refer to, Jesus and Mo, where Jesus and Muhammad are shooting the breeze, and Jesus says, "Well, the resurrection was real. You got to admit that. What happened to the body, the empty tomb?" And Muhammad said, "Look, you can't prove one part of a story by another part of the story. It's like saying there must be an Emerald City of Oz because otherwise, where does the yellow brick road lead?"
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that is exactly the problem.
Yeah.
And but I don't know if, how much that, and that's always been the basis for these debates. It'll be interesting to see if either man has moved beyond it.
Are you planning to watch it? Spend the $40 to watch it?
No, no, I never even watch my own blogs or anybody else's. I just don't, or YouTube. I look at something on Facebook. Oh, here's an interesting YouTube thing. Oh, YouTube, sorry, don't have time
Yeah.
because I don't, and I'd be in front of the tube for all day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how much time do you have today with me? Can you go
Oh, well,
as long as it
whatever
takes?
you planned is fine.
Okay. Okay. That's great. Do you know why you're here?
Because of the uh, the accusations that I'm a
Yeah.
racist and
Yeah.
all that.
Exactly. So,
Are they also saying I'm a Martian?
no, I have not seen any of those complaints that you're a Martian.
Because they might as well.
um, my guess is I can predict your answers to most of my questions, but I hope to be surprised. Uh, I guess we should start with this. How do you you've been accused of being a racist by some? How do you define racism?
A prejudicial antipathy toward people of a particular racial and or ethnic group just because they belong to it, and you feel there is something wrong with that group, which is utterly stupid. I have no patience for racism. I think I've written against it. I think it's ludicrous but dangerous, and that's what I think it means.
What would you say is the reason why racism is bad or wrong?
Well, because though people are different, luckily, they're all human beings and deserve the respect regardless. Now, individuals may forfeit that respect, but that's not because of any genetic thing or pigment, God forbid, or anything like that. But I mean, I don't really respect a uh, a career criminal, right?
Right.
But that's somebody once said, it's not bigotry to be to dislike jerks because nobody is born a jerk. They have to work at it, and so that's not prejudice. You're drawing a distinction because of behavior and choices an individual has made. That's, to me, that's not prejudice even.
Do you think one could be a good racist?
Well, if they just had superficial opinions, like as you may know, I'm a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft and write a whole lot about him, and he held racist opinions that I wish he hadn't had, but I'm part of a Lovecraft hero cult, personality cult. I just do not see that that means I should not enjoy fascinating and thought provoking fiction. Heidegger was a member of the Nazi Party, but as far as I can tell, that does not influence his existential ontology and all of that. I find it very helpful. And I just don't think you can make one thing disqualify an unrelated thing. Well, with Lovecraft, though, I started with him. This guy from We have numerous memoirs of this man from people that knew him, and they all attest to him and they're not really arguing the racism thing. They're just saying, well, I knew this guy, this is what he was like. And they go on to describe an almost Christ-like bodhisattva like concern for others, and a willingness to go the second mile to accept them despite their foibles. Now, unfortunately, he also held, I think, sort of armchair opinions about certain cultures and racists, but it seems simply to have been a nutty opinion with him. And so, that would be a case of a guy who was good despite this undesirable and irrational opinion he held on something. I mean,
Okay.
if he were a flat earther, that wouldn't bother me a whole lot. I'd say, boy, that is surprising. It's
Okay.
too bad, but
So what you're saying is
that's
you can be racist and still be great and or good person in other areas of your life.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I've known relatives like that they occasionally will make older ones will make a racist remark, and I kind of flinch at them. It's not my place to start a debate with them, but I realize, well, they grew up in a different culture, and I can't really be too surprised they absorbed some of it. I'm just glad when they do transcend it. But yeah, I don't just damn people because of either opinions I don't agree with or prejudices I find repulsive.
Okay. Yesterday, someone on Twitter suggested I go through a whole bunch of stuff, and other people sent me stuff, and it's like I'm like inundated with stuff of things you said in the past, and I want to give you an opportunity to explain what you mean, the context, and so forth. And I don't know exactly where to start, but maybe just in general, why do you think some people accuse you of being a racist?
Well, I think it's a Saul Alinsky move that he said you need to. I don't know if he put it in these terms, but he basically says you need to co-opt language to trap and marginalize and dismiss your ideological opponents. And so we now hear people say that, well, for instance, the homophobia charge, that's a great example. Like, I don't have any problem morally with homosexuality. That's not an issue for me. But I do stick up for people who have reasoned arguments against the morality of it, which I have sought to rebut in discussions. Well, they're not convinced, but I I don't think in their like my a relative of mine is a retired nurse, and she's a very sharp lady for medical reasons that I'm too stupid to understand. She says she thinks it's wrong and wrong because it's physically destructive ultimately. I don't. I'm not competent to evaluate that, but I can't say she's a homophobe. I happen to know she doesn't hold it against the many gay people she knows, but is her theory of being opposed to it, is that homophobia? Because phobia implies an unreasoning fear, like Bela Lugosi, black cat. When a black cat crosses his path, he freaks out and shoots it because he's a what an ailurophobe or something. He had this insane fear of cats. Didn't just dislike them, but was horrified. That's a phobia. Or you're afraid of the dark, so you can't go to sleep. That's a phobia. But having a different opinion on whether homosexuality is right or not, that's, I mean, I don't agree with that position, but I understand it is a reasoned position. And so I will not call it a phobia because that's a tactic to get you to say, well, I don't have to listen to them. I know I'm right. Why confuse myself with any other view? And that's what's happened with racism. We now hear, well, this goes way back at least to Daniel Moynihan and a big thing he did on crime in the black community and so forth, where he said it really seems there's a big correlation between lacking a father in the home and kids growing up without a moral compass. And that's why you've got these murder rates and gang violence. People said, oh, you're a racist. Why? For what? What did he do?
Yeah, in fact, can I call you Bob? Is that all right, or do you
No,
want?
please do.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Bob, even just like within an hour ago, someone made the exact same comment to me on Twitter about this. That you, I wish maybe I have it here, but that you made some comment about um, fatherless black homes or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And
That's the fact. There's no debating that except for people that just don't like the idea. You can't point out a problem in as a first step to trying to clarify and solve it. If you say there's a problem, you're a bigot. That you see what I mean? That
yeah,
they have stretched out racism and bigotry to the point where it is meaningless, but that's what they want to do.
but I think
That
his
they don't
point
want.
was, I think his point was though that um, fatherless homes might be a problem or is a problem, but you didn't mention that this occurs in other races as well. You just mentioned the black race.
Well, take a look at the statistics. Now, why is this the case? It's not because there's any genetic inferiority to blacks. I mean, it seems to me, I don't know enough about genetics, but if you had a genetic difference, as such as the Ku Klux Klan people and so on say, you couldn't even have intermarriage between the races. I mean, you'd be a different species. And it just seems to me that is absurd, and nobody's except the Ku Klux Klan caveman says so. But the thing is, why does this problem exist? Well, because certain leftist politicians, especially with LBJ, said that we need to get these people, and LBJ used the N word about it. We need to get them in our pocket. And with the war on poverty thing, we'll do that at least for the next half century. And so they're being manipulated by people who want to keep them down and have managed to do it by flooding them with welfare money and so on. It's not their fault. That's an absurd notion. But the thing is, they find themselves in this situation, and it's inculcated and reinforced by charlatans like Al Sharpton, a known liar, tax cheat, et cetera, just so he can continue to virtue signal his way into wealth. And it's very obvious, especially because there's a growing number of black thinkers and writers that point it out too.
Yeah.
It's not just a white opinion, and it's only a black problem because they have been victimized by the people that are trying to manipulate them.
Yeah. Let me, I don't know if you can see this, but you'll probably remember it. Uh, I think it's regarding Trayvon Martin.
Mm-hmm.
You probably can't see this, but do you
Yeah, yeah,
recognize?
I know what it is. Yeah.
Okay. So you wrote, so the title here is Michael Brown's parents go to an odd place to speak out against the Ferguson police. And then you wrote, what she should be mourning about is that her son was a worthless thug, another Trayvon martyr. So what did you mean by that statement?
Well, exactly what I said. This guy was no damn good. He tried to wrestle away the policeman's gun and shoot him with it. There was no hands up, don't shoot thing. That was shown later to be a liar, to be a lie. And this whole thing was based on this thug who was robbing a store, shoplifting, and then refused to cooperate with the police and then tried to shoot the policeman. He's just a worthless thug. He happened to be black, but that's not really the relevant thing. Do I say anything about him being black? Now, some people say, but the word thug,
Yeah.
that's inherently racist. No, it's not. Do you know what a thug is? It's from the Thuggee sect of people in 19th century India who would waylay travelers. Hey, can you help jump my car here, my camel, whatever? And then once you got down and helped them, they would garrote you with a scarf and bring the money to the Mother Kali fundraiser. These were the bad guys in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. They actually existed. And so we speak of all predator criminals as thugs. That has to do not with their race. It's like when Denny's used to be Sambo's. People say, racist. Uh, Wait, little black Sambo wasn't an African. He was a South Indian. And not that I mean, I have no interest in that or sympathy for it, but it's based on somebody's ignorance or lying. The word has become stretched out of all recognition and on purpose to give you the license to shut people up. My point is, look at what's happened here. It doesn't matter what that kid did. It's the fact that he is black shows it's an injustice, and the overriding assumption is if you're an African American, you can, by definition, you can do no wrong. And therefore, the next step is anything you do cannot be considered wrong. It's the same weird logic we find in radical holiness movements in Christianity, where they say, I've been sanctified by the Holy Ghost, I'm free from sin, and therefore anything I do now does not count as a sin. Have known people from groups like that. That's what's happened here.
Like,
And it's just, and,
do you think
mhm.
that like my guess is it's just a very small percentage that would disagree with what you just said. Like, I think it's very reasonable what you said, that we don't respect thugs, right? And
Mhm.
that if you're a mother and your son has a rap sheet really long of all the things you've done illegally, uh, you should mourn that, and
Yeah.
say it's terrible. But my question would be, why do you think that some people do view this as racist? Is this back to what you said earlier, that it's a way to the tribalism and way to dismiss? I call it the feel sorry forness religion. That there's certain people who have a propensity to feel sorry for other groups of people more than others.
The
Is
bleeding heart liberal
Yeah,
for me.
and this is, like, I come from the perspective that I think there's a reason why people vote, let's say, Republican or Democrat. All around the world, there's these divisions, and there's a reason for it, and that is because some people, their intuitions or how they were raised or whatever, it's the soft love versus the hard love. And so a person who would take what you said there and say, but it's not their fault, it's because of the system they were placed in. Whereas I think guys like you and me would say, well, wait a minute, there's people who maybe have had a raw deal in life, but they don't go out and kill and rob and do all these things. And so at some point, personal responsibility has to fit in here.
Mhm.
So
The deck is stacked, but you're not simply the logical outcome of something. You're not just a function of a machine. And look at the people with the same sort of background who resisted those temptations and went on to do great things. But what happens to them? They get denounced by uh, race hustlers as acting white, which implies that success is impossible, despite the fact that we have a had a black president, we're not got a black vice president, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Somehow we're back in the 50s with Bull Connor. They've created a fantasy world here, and so they try to keep people down on a democratic plantation, as black people like Candace Candace Owens, yeah, says that we're not going to stay on the plantation licking your boots, and that's so they. It seems to me that it's simply a gimmick. People will say, well, Price, that this is personal, not political. If you think that, you are very naive. Because the whole idea, once that thing was put on, that clip of her was put on the internet or the news or whatever, it was weaponized and for the particular purpose of erasing any moral distinctions. Race A does it, it's bad. Race B does it, it's good, or at least not so bad. And that is social civilizational suicide.
yeah, I was
And what
thinking, this reminds me of what happened just a couple days ago on Sunday with Will Smith. And I was thinking to myself, who, I think it's John Voight, Angelina Jolie's dad,
yeah.
who's an actor and an outspoken Republican. If he would have walked up and slapped Chris Rock, my suspicion is he would have been escorted out of the building.
Yeah,
But when Will Smith does it, he's not. Now, I don't know, but my suspicion is that race is a factor here, and that it's actually more racist not to escort Will Smith out than to leave him there. Like it's like you're saying it's okay,
yeah,
and 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 some people would say that you can't even say anything against Will Smith here because you don't know him, and you don't. But would they say the same thing about John Voight?
yeah.
So
I mean, there is always more behind what someone does, good or bad, than we know since we don't have telepathy. But you don't have to know that. That kind of thing, it's utter agnosticism about people's motives and their effects. That is it just that stymies any kind of like doctrines of absolute predestination. That you can, this is another way of saying, given your genes and your environment, you can't really blame any murderer, thief, rioter, whatever he does. Well, you might be right. It's possible that their every act was dictated by their subconscious because of their upbringing and their genetics. There was no way in the cosmic epic that they were going to do anything else. Well, I don't know if that's true, but even if it is, we have to act as if it were
yeah,
not. It's a legal fiction, or everybody's dead pretty soon.
yeah, I agree. Like I lean deterministic, but I come from the point of view that we don't know what effect and what all the causes and effects, and we have to act like what we say makes a difference, and change the future. I want to bring up another one that a lot of people would view as racist thing that you said. Here's a thought: if the Supreme Court forces the Washington Redskins to change their name, I propose the Savages.
Yeah, I tell you, that just what they took from that is funnier than my attempt at a joke. My point is to say, oh, you don't like Redskins? Well, how about this? I mean, it's like it's just as stupid. Nobody would do that, but Redskins isn't savages. It's just a joke, and some people, especially these social justice people, have no sense of humor and can't recognize a joke when they hear it.
Yeah, well, so what you're saying is you were like Chris Rock that day.
Exactly. Have you ever heard what Chris Rock says about N-word people? He says, oh, he believes that there are N-word people, but that's okay. He doesn't like them either because that refers to a particular kind of slovenly gang drug kind of thing that he despises. He transcends it. Are they going to dare to call him a racist? Lucky him, no, because that would mean we'd have to admit that a fellow African American did something wrong. And we know by definition that is impossible.
Well, yeah, they define
And
racism differently. I don't know how to describe who they are, but some people define racism as that it's impossible to be a person of color and be racist.
yeah, that's absurd. I mean, look at the attacks that leveled against other races, Orientals, when black thugs, which are not synonymous terms, start attacking Orientals or Asians, or whatever you want to call them, in the street. That's not racism. I mean, maybe it's just a random target. Who knows? Maybe they're literally colorblind, but I doubt it. Obviously, look at the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad's sect. They say that whites are degenerated uh, proto-humans, that Allah created people black, but the mad scientist Dr. Yakub had managed to create subhumans, and the lighter the shade, the more primitive they were, and that's not racism. The group you don't like is not even human. I mean, the Nazis said that. There were Nazi theoreticians that said, "You want to know where blacks came from? Adam and Eve mated with apes." You're insane. And that is racist, but that's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said too. He just had a different target.
It, I don't know the context of this. Someone just sent it to me, or I copied and pasted from somewhere in a quick preparation for today. But maybe you can help me what the context it is. Let's fast forward to today when I learned that the anthology had been canceled because several of the contributing authors withdrew their work because they didn't want to be associated with Price's introduction. My uninformed gut reaction was to be angry at the authors. Is this just another example of folks getting angry, of off-color humor? Then he goes on to say, let's look at just one page. Commenting on the Me Too movement, Price states, the continuous false rape accusations are seeking to make masculinity, even natural male interest in women, into a rape culture. He moves on to a Ponce about pornography. I long have puzzled at the feminist hatred of pornography. It reduces women to sex objects. Absurd. It's simply highlighting an aspect of beautiful women. And then he moves on to the politics of gendered language. Many of the progressives want to replace he, she, his, her, him with gender neutral language so as to promote the illusion that the gender is a matter of social construction. And this is only one page. At this point, I was wondering, excuse the harsh language, what the F does this have to do with sword and sorcery? So tell me what this is about. You wrote an intro to something to
Yes, this was my anthology. I edit fiction anthologies, horror, epic fantasy, things like that, and write it also. This was the introduction to a book called Flashing Swords, a continuation of Lynn Carter's 1970s series of sword and sorcery anthologies. And the reason that I went into this was like people faulted me for not just having a typical introduction that says, you're going to like these stories because they're good stories. Who needs that? I said, let me tell you why this is more than just escapist literature. By sword and sorcery, I mean like Conan the Barbarian and stuff like that. The reason that is needful today is this movement toward demasculinizing men. And in effect, saying all masculinity is toxic masculinity. I've read enough feminist theologians and secular feminist theoreticians to know that. And I mentioned several of these books, in fact, in the introduction. And I say that this is a big mistake. You're making kids into sissies. Boys can't bang, bang, play cowboy and Indian anymore because that's too much like actually murdering somebody. You gotta be kidding. Are you, don't you realize what kind of world these kids will grow up in? They need the masculine virtues and the feminine virtues.
it's
I mean,
it,
I'm
I'll
even
stop you
on
here.
record.
I just want to say I was raised Mennonite, pacifistic, and
Oh,
even we played cops and robbers as kids and with
ah,
fake guns and stuff. But anyhow, go on.
um,
You were saying that that the reason why you put this in is because you
oh,
wanted. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, a return to masculine virtue and the inculcation of it, uh, rather than having a drive toward a unisex model in which there is one sex and it's female. That men should all be like women and everything would be fine because all the world's ills come from masculinity, patriarchy, and so on. Well, there's a lot of awful stuff that has been done in the name of that. Luckily, we're beginning to evolve beyond it, but the solution is not to go all the way to the opposite extreme. And so I'm saying a good thing to do with your kids in part of their education is to have them read Robert E. Howard, the Conan stories, Edgar Rice Burroughs, John Carter of Mars, and Tarzan, Doc Savage, and so forth. These show noble, resourceful, strong men who have regard for strong women. And they're brawny, but emphasize brain over brawn. I mean, they're very good things for kids to read, so boys don't grow up just to be limp-wristed sissies. And that again has nothing to do with sexual orientation. right? Let's not paint everybody with the same brush on that. It has nothing to do with gay straight issues. It just has to do with masculinity and femininity, each of which is great. And I hate to see either one of them subsumed in the other.
Yeah, like these feminists that you've read, do they say that all masculinity is bad?
Yeah, I've read not every one, of course, but I've read various ones like Shulamith Firestone, The Dialectic of Sex. Can't think of this woman's name, but I Bitch, and various others. Not all feminists. I mean, everybody draws distinctions. Which wave of feminism you're part of, but you do constantly hear in reading in this field claims that it's all bad. There is war, for instance, only because men have been in charge, and so we got to take the gun out of the hands of the chimp. And I just think that, yeah, to a great degree, that's true, but it's because, as with everything, it took people an awful long time to become enlightened. That doesn't mean everything they did was wrong. And as with the trans thing, I have always, when on the rare occasions I've addressed this, I've said, I take people as they come. I don't care what they are. I have friends who are gay, straight, Satanist, traditional Roman Catholic, Moonies, communists, people that think Marx didn't go far enough. I love that. The more diverse, the better. I have friends who are Africans,
But would
African
you,
Americans, Hasidic Jews.
with trans people, would you, if they wanted to be referred to as a certain pronoun, would you do it?
No, I'm afraid I will not let people tell me what to say.
Okay.
But if they now if they have made the transition and now say a man who does this like Bruce Jenner and becomes a woman, I'd say yeah, I'd say she in that case. But all of this stuff with where they start parsing it to the point where we supposedly have 150 genders, and you have to use the right pronoun or you'll be fired or something. That is lunacy. But I respect people's identity choices, and I see them as individuals. I don't. I remember once at a Lovecraft convention, a couple of people that liked my work came up to me and asked me to autograph a couple of my anthologies. These guys were screaming gay. I mean, you couldn't have had a more gay stereotype. My reaction was one of a kind of fatherly compassion. I felt like these people are mine, like my parishioners or my family or something. They appreciate my work, and I appreciate them as they are. I think of friends who are gay, and I've often said I would never want them to convert to being straight. It's integral to their personality, which I love. I don't, I just people are people to me. It's just that you also have to see the forest and not just the trees. And it seems to me that something is going wrong in our culture when suddenly you have a huge occurrence of young girls wanting to transition to male. Like it's almost never the other way around. And what is going on here? There's something wrong. I think this is a symptom of something bad in terms of society. I think it's becoming like what Weber or Durkheim, one of them called anomie, a normless society where there are no shared values anymore, and such a society is very likely doomed, which I think ours very likely is.
My
But in the meantime, the individuals, bring them on. I love them.
Yeah, I have a similar attitude as you. My fear, this is my phobia, is that um, some young kids, let's say teenage years, like in my son's high school, if you come out as trans, you get a ton of love and attention.
Mm, mm.
And I'm sometimes I
Mm.
wonder if them transitioning is to get this love and attention, and it's not so
Mm.
much of a difference
Yeah, I
between
bet.
gender and biology.
Yeah, I suspect so because otherwise, why? I mean, it's a symptom of isolation, and it is correlated with. It can't demonstrate causation, I think, with all the internet bullying and the suicide that results from that. There's much more bullying going on, like on different fronts in different media than there used to be, and it's always been a problem. And then this comes, especially when girls are. Criticized because they don't fit the fashion model stereotype. Well, it makes sense to me that they might say, well, I'm not really making it as a girl. Maybe I'll try something else. If I'm a boy, that's not going to matter. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised
Okay.
if that did. So is that immoral? Well, no. The only immoral part of the whole trans thing is when kids are actually indoctrinated by leftist teachers to say, well, maybe you ought to switch over, and so that they have no business doing that, and especially suggesting medical procedures that may do permanent harm.
Yeah.
Which is why you have an unusual number of suicides among people who have transitioned, and various adults that say, I did that, boy, I wish I hadn't. And that doesn't mean everybody's going to do that. I don't think Bruce Jenner's likely to do it anytime soon. And it doesn't say anything about any individual you meet. It's just you got to see the forest and the trees and wonder what is going on here.
Yeah, I think it's very reasonable to say that if someone is considering transitioning, that they have access to people who have transitioned and regret it, and
Yeah.
read those stories. I want to bring up another one here. This is about, if Black Lives matter so much, why don't their fathers want to be a part of it? We kind of touched on this already, but this is something you wrote, I think, right? Um, Male children of such families have no male role models in the home and wind up getting anti socialized by street gangs, channeling their burgeoning male energies into predation and savagery, the state of pre civilization. No wonder they don't take school seriously, lacking discipline at home. And you go on. Did you write this?
Yeah, I can't take credit for the whatever that is, the meme or something like that. Though I like it, I just don't want to steal credit from whoever did come up with it. Let's see, I did write it, and it seems to me again that is obviously true. And what's so ironic is I am explicitly saying this is a result of bungled child rearing. It's not the result of people being genetically disposed to savagery. Now, that would be racist, but I'm not saying that. If we pursued it a step further, I would say this is because of certain government policies, starting at least with LBJ. It has nothing to do with the guilt of the Black culture. They've been set on a deadly course, and you can see the results. There's no denying the statistics. In fact, one state is now suggesting, or maybe they've enacted it already, that in punishments for misbehavior, you adjust it to racial identity. In other words, they expect African American kids to be hellraisers. Like, I mean, they might be right, depending on why they think it is. But look what they're doing. They're just ignoring the problem. I would say it's racist, except that I don't know why they view the greater incidence and the greater probability of Black misbehavior in school. They might also see it as the result of bad policies, but people that make rules like this very likely are on the bandwagon with the people that made the bad policy. So I don't know what they're thinking, but it's certainly not going to help anything.
Yeah, I've heard some people say that that just because African American families are not, let's say, married, that there's still men in their lives, and so that you can't make that conclusion that it's broken homes that's causing the problem. Have you heard that?
Well, if there are men in their lives, that's not what I'm criticizing. Like, for instance, in um, Pacific Islander cultures, often an uncle is just as important as the father and
Right.
has different initiatory roles and all that. I'm not saying, I mean, you might as well say, well, if the biological father skipped town and nobody ever saw him again, and the mother remarried, and so the kid has a stepfather. Obviously, that's not what I'm talking about. It's the absence of male mentorship, like Robert Bly describes in his book Iron John, which everybody used to read and probably still should.
Why do you think male mentorship is important?
You need to learn how to be a man from somebody who is one and learned the hard way or from his own male mentor. But you need to have male values inculcated by people that know where it's at and why it's good. Like, should you strike back if at a bully, for instance? You, like Opie asks Andy Griffith, Andy Taylor on the show, or I'm a big fan of The Rifleman, and I love the way the relationship between the father and the son are is depicted, and how they admire each other and teach each other. And the father is teaching principles of honor and so forth. Now, his wife has died, so he's the only parent. But you get the impression, but he's only got the one son. You get the impression that if there was a daughter involved, he would hasten to marry. That nearly happens in one of the episodes. And so it's not like it has to be perfect, but there's a basic structure. And when you have Black Lives Matter, for instance, saying that they are against the nuclear family and want to see it dismantled, what are they aiming at there? Well, they are anarchistic. They're
Would Black
violent.
Lives Matter say that?
What's that? Oh,
Black.
yes, they do. It was until recently, it was on their website as part of their statement of principles. They admit they're Marxists and that they're against the nuclear family. And of course, what they want to do is to not to have chaos with people wild in the streets, though they also don't seem to mind that. But they're aiming at a state in which children would be brought up by the state, not by the parents, which you had to some degree in the Soviet Union. Hey, you better not indoctrinate your kids in religion. We, the state, will tell them what to think about that. And I get very disturbed when fellow atheists say, parents teaching their kids, bringing their kids up in a religion is child abuse. No, even if I don't agree with the religion, what you said is Stalinism, and I'm not for it. It's like that's what I see in Hillary Clinton, who's a confessed Alinskyite. She writes this book. It takes a village. It's like a kibbutz kind of a thing, I guess. But I think she probably should have called it "It Takes a Gulag," because it's the anti-family thing is pro-state ownership of children. You see that again with
Mm-hmm.
these teachers telling kids, "Well, we're going to talk about you changing gender, but we're not going to tell your parents." Why do they think they have the right to do that? Because they think the state owns the children, not the parents.
Well,
They
you
don't
know
own
what?
them.
Maybe they're right that the state does own the parents because the state's paying for the kids. You get like, I've been a big person to say you shouldn't have kids unless you can afford them. And
Mhm.
if you have kids and basically the government's paying for their food, shelter, and clothing,
Uh,
they basically own the kids.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
Speaking of, I think you brought up Black Lives Matter. Here's another one that someone sent me, or I copied and pasted from somewhere. This article, Black Lives Matter.
Hmm.
You wrote this,
Oh,
June
yes, and
3rd.
I would swear by every word of it. I just reread it last night.
Okay, give us the synopsis of what this is about and what the point you're trying to make.
Well, mainly most of what we've been talking about that the like the minstrel show the poster there reflects a scene from Gone with the Wind, where the uh, the war between the states is over, and the carpetbaggers come from the north and are busy recruiting freed slaves as a voting bloc, and they say, we're your friends, and you're going to vote like your friends vote. And it's just a new kind of enslavement, quote unquote. Why don't you switch over to our plantation? You won't be picking cotton, but you'll be putting the right thing in the ballot box. That was already patronizing racist exploitation. And it continues to be that way, as people like Candace Owens and others say today. Blacks need to get off the Democrat plantation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've covered a lot of that sort of thing. Let's move more to politics. Well, this is sort of politics too, but more about things like Republican Party and Trump. Are you a Trump supporter, or
Oh
were you?
yeah, yeah, big
Okay.
time.
Is there anything you don't like about Trump?
Um, well, he plays golf, which I hate. Um, but what's not to like, especially if you have a cynical, smart-ass sense of humor?
Well,
Uh,
what
uh,
about him
I,
grabbing women by the,
we don't even know if that's true. One woman said that she was on a plane with Trump started groping and grabbing her as if an octopus was entangling her. I don't believe that. Could that have gone on for seconds before Trump would have been grabbed? It's ridiculous. And in fact, other women that have come forward with these stories have eventually been like with others too, like the thing with Judge Kavanaugh. A lot of these accusations are later recanted or exposed. You can't ever really know. Now, he was sexually more frisky than I would advise people to be. There's no doubt of that. And if he had, suppose he had sex with Stormy Daniels, was that her name? Um,
yeah.
like Greg Gutfeld said, would that really surprise you, given the kind of guy Trump is? He's not a moral paragon in some ways, but that's not, you're not voting for, like Huckabee said, I think, was he, about Mitt Romney when he was the Republican nominee. He says, yeah, he's a Mormon. I don't agree with Mormonism. Okay, but fellow evangelicals, remember, you're not voting for a Sunday school teacher. And that's the way it seems here, because what he does pursue that is righteous and helpful is the America First policy, which, despite the carping of these propagandists, never meant to hell with everybody else. He made it clear the first day that he meant that France should put French interests first,
But I want
Britain
to,
British.
I want, getting back to the first thing you said, like I asked you, is there anything you don't like about Trump?
Not much.
One thing I'm on record as saying that I think Trump is the worst role model out of all the presidents, which is different than the politics part. And the reason why I think that is because I don't know if you've seen this video, but it has him on video saying some really nasty stuff that I definitely like. I have a son, and I would never. I'd be ashamed if my son behaved this way. Like this is Trump on audio saying I took her out furniture shopping or something. I moved on her like a bitch, but I couldn't get there, and she was married. Like he's basically admitting that he's making moves on married women, um, and basically, for his own sexual gratification. This is what I
That's
don't.
bad.
Yeah, I don't like
But
Trump
you
for
have
that.
to choose your battles. To me, I'd rather have him than a mannequin like Biden manipulated by lunatic dogmatists into shutting down the energy industry, in being weak in foreign policy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do you really care that much about what he may have done in his past? I mean, I'd like to know the date of that, but
Yeah.
it seems people don't seem to hold that against Clinton, and it's unfortunate. But look at why the guy is president. He's not like Cato of ancient Rome, the official censor and moral paragon. The stuff he's done for veterans, for homosexuals, for women, that he for African Americans. I mean, I know you've seen the picture of Jesse Jackson giving him an award for his work on behalf of African Americans, but they just lie and say he's a racist. He's always given prominence to women in positions of authority in his companies and in the government, but they just ignore that. They say with that he said they're good people on both sides of this. Oh, yeah, he thought those Klansmen and Nazis were just as good as He didn't say that. He said something altogether different. He's talking about the people that don't want the past erased by destroying Confederate monuments. They say he hates the handicap because he did this thing in a speech where he said, "Oh, so and so journalist," and it turned out the guy had some sort of disorder that resulted in odd movements. I don't know that he even knew that, but it was proven that he that's just one of his shticks when he's talking about somebody he thinks is a flustered airhead, and that it had nothing to do with this poor guy's affliction. They're just lying repeatedly, and oh, anyway, it
But
just
he's a
seems
bit
to
of a
me that
narcissist, don't wouldn't you agree?
I don't care. Look at what he's done for the country. And look at what Biden, who's a career criminal, is doing for the country. He's better. He's bought by China. His foreign policy is controlled by
Yeah.
the graft he receives, as has been proven by Hunter's laptop from hell, but other stuff we already knew anyway. It baffles me
Yeah,
how
what is interesting, like prior to the election, that Biden's son's laptop was kind of just put under the rug or dismissed as whatever propaganda, but now it seems like there's substance there, and this gets to that whole thing about misinformation. You know, there's you got to censor misinformation. Well, the problem is 90% of people can say this is true, and the 10% who say this is false could be right, and so what is viewed as misinformation might actually be the truth. And so that's why we have to
right
have, we shouldn't censor.
could be.
Yeah, we should
Yeah.
just let it. One question that I've asked people who despise Trump is I'm a type of person who I think you should never love a politician nor hate them unless they do something really drastic.
Mm.
Um, but I tend to ask them, what has, how did Trump make your life worse personally? Like, don't talk about other people, just you.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I get usually it's responses about Trump hurting their feelings or making them mad. Or I've had answers like he's broken up relationships between me and my brother-in-law or something because we fight about politics. And then I will say things like, well, aren't there people who are pro-Trump and anti-Trump family members who get along? It's your fault, not Trump's, that this division has been
Mm.
put in. And so they want to take personal responsibility and put it on Trump rather than themselves.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Such children.
What do you think of the Capitol riot?
Oh, that was a false flag operation. Those people that were told to go there were told by a guy who's an operative of the FBI, as he was being denounced for that by the crowd at the time. Don't listen to this guy. But he's the one that's, oh yeah, we got to break in and so on. We just like the phony plot to kidnapped Gretchen Whitmer, it's been disclosed that in both cases, a number of the plotters were FBI assets. They were trying to create something that they could then overblow. And they shouldn't have done that, but it wasn't much of a big deal. They opened the doors to the place to let them in. They lied about a guy getting his brains beat out with a fire extinguisher. Later, it turned out it didn't happen. The only person that died was a Trump supporter who was shot in the back by a Capitol policeman, unprovoked. This whole idea, though, this is worse than 9/11, this is worse than Pearl Harbor. Nobody could really believe that. They just must think the public is stupid enough to believe it. The fact that they hunted down all these people that they could find that were there, and some of them have been languishing in jail without a trial for all this time. How can this happen in America? You just have thuggery on the part of these people that just think Trump is the Antichrist, and because he's pursuing policies that are good for America. I know that sounds crazy. I never would have believed that would happen, but I don't know any other way to interpret these
But there
things.
was a couple of thugs in the Capitol, though, too, right?
I'm not sure, there might have been. I sure wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised. But like this guy with the headdress, he's
Yeah.
just a nut. He didn't hurt anybody or whatever. I mean, he did a kook, but that's not really. I guess the Congress is full of them anyway.
Why do you think Trump lost?
I don't think he did. I am persuaded that the election was stolen and that the Supreme Court just chickened out. They wouldn't hear the case, and many of the state governments wouldn't listen to the evidence Trump's lawyers were prepared to present. And even now, they're suppressing the results of this Arizona investigation. I've read both sides of that one, and it just seems to me very clear that they don't want the trouble. I guess maybe that's the best reading. That like when Nixon lost to Kennedy, he technically he said he won, but he didn't want to put the country through the rigmarole that would follow if he challenged it. So that's one decent thing Tricky did.
But
did.
how would you
But
come to the conclusion? Like you said, you think it was rigged or something. How would you come to that conclusion without actually seeing the evidence if it's suppressed?
well, some of it I have. There is video footage of people stuffing ballot boxes. There's eyewitness testimony. Uh, Supervisors of the vote counters that say that they saw one of the counters with his computer connected to the internet, which was supposed to be impossible because that would allow for shenanigans. The timing. In only but all of the swing states, Biden was about to lose until late in the process, and suddenly there's this flood of votes for him on the machines, and more than there were voters in some cases, actually in the areas. It just seems to me very clear. I mean, I don't know it absolutely, but it seems to me there is a real case for that. Of course, it's moot; nothing will happen as a result of it, even if it's true. But I think, yeah, there is serious reason to think it just got ripped off.
Yeah, like for me, the biggest evidence that if I don't believe there was like there's always going to be fraud, but the question is like to what extent. And but to me, the biggest argument that Trump might have won is it was a four sigma event, bigger than a three sigma event. Like I don't think any time in history has a sitting president got more votes the second time than the first time and still lost, right? And that
Yeah,
so that is a statistical amazement. And
yeah.
but then one could argue that um, this was a very because of COVID, this was a very unique situation where you had mail-in ballots, and so people could mail in, and that's why Biden surged in the late hours because they were starting to open up the mail-ins. Have you heard that?
Not in that form, but I have heard that some of the shenanigans performed with the mail-in votes, having them changed by the counters, just like old Bob Dole said in the Bush Gore thing. He said they're not counting votes in there; they're casting votes in there. And I kind of think that there's reason to believe that. Also, the voting of the living dead, the ballots that suddenly turn up in odd places, the ease with which these ballot receptacles out here and there, like almost like mailboxes, could be stuffed with things. It just seems to me they made it sloppy using COVID as an excuse, which they'll try to do again this next time. I hope they can be headed off in the past.
Got a donation here. David Gora is wrong. Go find the article and read it for yourself. I'm not sure what this is referring to. Do you? Do you?
No.
Okay. Well, thanks for the donation, Jack of Trades. How do you think Trump did handle COVID? Do you think is that maybe part of the reason why he lost? Because some of the conservative base thought that there should have been no such shutdowns.
I don't know. I've not heard that suggested, though that doesn't mean anything. I may just not have happened to hear it. But I kind of doubt that because of the warp speed thing. The fact that he got three vaccines created in record time, that ain't bad. And though now in retrospect it looks a bit different because the vaccines may be poisoning people. I'm not competent to judge that, but there's serious doubts about it. And but at the time, the lockdowns, I don't think they were saying yet, as they are now, that they did no good and only crippled the economy. But even there, Trump was able to get the economy restarted afterward in a surprising fashion. But I don't know what was on people's minds vis-a-vis the COVID thing, but I do find it very difficult to believe that people could have taken a look at Biden with these stumbling Steve Brule like presentations from his basement and preferred that to everything Trump had done. It just seems to me if this is just
Well, yeah,
crazy.
a lot of Democrats, I think, regret voting for Biden. It's obvious he's not all upstairs. Not
But it
maybe.
was already. I mean, I don't know how anybody could have considered voting for this.
Well, it was the
This
lesser of two evils. It's like I think a lot of independents might say, they just hate Trump and they just hate Biden less. um,
that's the total. You may be right though.
uh, d- I didn't know what that other super chat was about, but David Gore says, "What about Trump's refusal to apologize about Central Park 5? Trump ran a full-page ad as a citizen calling for the execution of those teens." That's going way back, right?
Can you tell me any more about that? I don't recall that.
I think there's some thugs who Trump at some. How many years ago was this, David Gore? This is a long time ago, right? Um, that there was some crimes committed, and Trump made some comment that these teens should be executed. And my guess is they're all black.
Well, they could be South Moluccans for all I care, but I know this is really going to get me in hot water or hot lava. But I think the death penalty is way too sparsely enacted. I think that, for instance, that rioters should simply be shot down as they used to be. But we are now so soft and sentimental we can't even accuse anybody of treason anymore. And that's another reason I suspect our society is doomed. You have, like the rabbis said, don't be too quick to try to eradicate the evil inclination that everyone has, because without it, you're not going to have the will to do what you must do with invading enemies,
But
with murderers
I want to get
and
back to
things.
that other thing you said about you believe rioters should be shot down. Is that what you said?
Yes, I sure do.
Yeah, like I share with you your aversion to like if people own a business and thugs come in and destroy it, like they should be punished. But do you actually think they should be die for it?
Yes, they're asking for it. You see, this is where it is the clearest that you are in a war with those who are trying to destroy your civilization. And in a war, you don't stand idly by and watch the enemy's depredations. Regretfully, you have to shoot them. And that is what's happening here. We're in a war situation, and these people are the enemies of civilization. Now we can go down with the ship, congratulating ourselves on how compassionate we are, but that's where we're going down with it. I know this will never happen. It's just armchair theorizing. My opinions will mean
But then
nothing, but that being honest,
aren't we just as bad as like the radical Muslims who just want to, cut the hands off thieves and chop heads off people who commit crimes? Like, maybe this is just my Mennonite background coming through, but I'd get a big helicopter and just throw down a big net and just net them up and then put them in jail cells until they cool off, fine them or
but
jail
you
them.
know what would happen? They'll all be let go without bail and all this stuff. It seems to me that is just, that there's a Star Trek episode. I love the poster that said everything I ever needed to learn. I learned from Star Trek. There's one where Captain Kirk is split during the transporter beam, and he becomes a sort of Jekyll and Hyde. The bad Kirk, who is a little more than a savage, and the good Kirk, who is a wimp. And they're suddenly they're on the eve of war with the Klingons, and the weak Kirk is nonetheless has the intelligence to pilot the ship and command the ship, and so he's indecisive. What should we do, Mr. Spock? Captain, time's running out, and he's like Jimmy Carter suddenly. And the thing is that that's where we are headed, a kind of dithering, uh, like morality has gone decadent in the wrong direction. Now we are super moral in a way that will destroy us. We'll just say, well, maybe we can slap them on the wrist and they won't
But aren't like
torch.
I don't know, like I think a lot of these rioters who I strongly disagree with, I don't think any rioting should be happening, but a lot of these are kids who are
I
just
don't care. That
stupid.
they're bad. I mean, look what they've become. Do you really think you're going to be able to rehabilitate them? And it doesn't matter. They're on the battlefield fighting for the wrong side. We didn't ask them to go out there.
But some like I'm sure there's adults today. Some of them might be listening right now who look back when they were 18 and saying I did a lot of stupid things, but now they're great contributors to society. They
It's a different scenario. I doubt if they were all rioters and arsonists. And if they were, they're just lucky they survived it by the skin of their teeth. But you can't approach that like, should I shoot that Nazi? Misguided. If he survives this, maybe he'll become a rocket scientist or something. You can't do that. You can't know that. They have put themselves in a deadly position. And you can't just be a wimp and let them out of it because your civilization is at stake. Things will get much worse, and it'll be thanks to us limp wristed, bleeding hearts.
But
I
how do
know a
you?
lot of people.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but and I do empathize with you because I really hate it when people work their lives for something and then
What do you need to ask them?
um yeah, good point. But I guess like, one could take your philosophy there and apply it to just anybody during the Capitol riots, just shoot them dead, right?
Well, they weren't violent. I mean, some of the instigators who weren't even Trump supporters did some property damage. But the only person that got killed was a Trump supporter by a Capitol policeman. They just made the rest of the stuff up.
Yeah, the thing is, at what point do you pull the trigger? Like, do they have to set the fire first and then you shoot, or is it just in there? They are in the area.
Well, if they're active in what's going on, destroying stores, torching police cars, that's enough. This is the kind of thing that cannot spread, but it did spread because the police did nothing.
Yeah.
And you can feel happy as you go gently into that good night, taking civilization with you, but I want no part of it. But again, this might as well be a game of Risk or something because my opinions carry no weight. I'm just, theorizing from the armchair.
See, and
Really.
I think I've been on record of saying that crime would go down by 50%, poverty would go down by at least 50% if every child born was born of a committed parents who want the child.
Mhm.
And so a lot of these problems, social problems that we're having, stems to back what we were talking about earlier about having a nuclear family
Yeah.
who want their children. I had a friend who worked as a jail guard, and I asked him what percentage of the people in jail uh, came from foster homes, basically unwanted children. And he said, "Oh, the vast majority."
Mm.
And
Mm.
I think people on the left and the right are all agreed that we should, if you're going to produce children, want them and love them
Mm.
and care for them. And I think a lot of these problems that we're talking about will just take care of itself.
I think you're right.
Yeah. And I hope the left agrees with what I just said. And that way we can all come together and try to help make society better.
Mm.
So that's my bridge building right there. Maybe we should end it here.
It's okay with me. And again, like to quote one of my favorites, "You're wise, Van Helsing, for one who has lived but a single lifetime."
Okay, well, thanks for coming on, Bob. It's been very interesting, and I hope people who disagree with you and who do think you're a racist and just think bad things about you at least took something good out of this and say, hey, you know what? I do agree with Bob here, even though I disagree with him here, here, and here, and can at least understand where you're coming from, where I'm coming from, and that people have different values. Yeah, and that we need each other in order for society to work.
Hmm, you
So,
bet.
okay, take care. Have a great day.
Okay, thanks for having me on.
And I know that there's been a lot of people with a lot of questions, but there's no way on earth, I'm by myself here. There's no way on earth I can go through all this and ask every question or even come close. Um, I do think some good has come out of this. I do think that on the things I disagreed with him on, like the election and so forth, I think I put a pebble in his shoe. And there's a lot of things I do agree with him. But here's what I would never deplatform him for anything he said here. This is how we make progress in society. One can be convinced that they're right. You know what's interesting about this? One thing that I've learned as I'm now over 50 years old is you can be so incredibly confident that you're right about something when you're 28. And when you turn 50, you realize I was wrong. And as crazy as some people think Bob is, even about, like, I think Bob's wrong about the election fraud. I do. I think he's wrong. But it does not surprise me that maybe 10 years from now, we'll find out he was right. I'm not saying that's going to happen, and I'm not saying that's even a high percentage. But if you're a seeker of truth, if you value truth, you have to be open to that possibility that he's actually right. I know this sounds terrible to some people, but what I said is true. There's many crazy things that people have said in the past, and they ended up being right. And sometimes it takes years for evidence to come out. So, and there's no crime in having what one believes or one thinks is a crazy belief. There's many people, everybody, every single person on the planet has at least one crazy belief. What's mine? Or at least there's definitely people who think others have crazy beliefs. Right? And I think the bridge I was trying to build at the end, that most of society's problems stem from unwanted children. And we need to fix that. And I think we are fixing it, actually. I have hope. I think society is coming around to that. You're seeing the birth rate fall in many, many countries, which means that the people who are having kids actually desire that. Anybody who's been who knows anything about the foster care program can tell you horror stories. Ensure that, like, when you see riots or demonstrations or whatever that end up being arson and property damage, sure, there's some people there who are really trying to fight for a cause, but I bet you most, I'll even make this, I don't know the truth of this, but my guess is the vast majority of the people there were not wanted babies. Oh, I just judged some people. So yeah, on the racist, homophobic, like, I want to try to help people who disagree or who think that Robert Price is a racist and a homophobe and all these things. Number one, please know that calling people these names is not effective. I think we're agreed on that, right? And I think that the value of those words is going down. Like, calling someone a racist doesn't have any meaning nowadays, especially from some followers of CRT. Says, oh, everybody's a racist. Well, all white people are racist. So if everybody's a racist, then it really doesn't, mean that much when you call someone a racist. So, just throwing these words around doesn't help. Actually doing what I did here today is a good start, right? You actually sit down with people you disagree with and you have a civil conversation. You don't deplatform them, you talk. And who knows, maybe some things you thought were right are actually wrong, and vice versa. Yeah. So you notice how when I say some, I had to say some 3 times. Some followers of CRT. And people still don't hear it. Said it 3 times. Doug, can you define CRT? I don't think anybody can. But it has something to do with power and race. Explain how society has been shaped and molded by it. It didn't sound like you disagreed with him at all, Doug. Brenda, I disagreed with him. I even said point blank, didn't I? I disagreed with him. Didn't think it was a fraud election. Or I said there's always some fraud, but the question is, would it overturn? But on the racism part and all that sort of thing, yeah, I didn't disagree with him. For the most part, I agreed with him. Now, some people want to call me a racist because that does not matter. Like throwing words out doesn't matter. Like some people, just the way certain sentences are phrased, like the good example was that thug comment. They just get this knee-jerk reaction to the way certain things are put. I think you could have pushed back more on his death sentence stuff. Well, I did push back, right? So, I mean, I disagreed with him there too, Brenda. Like, I don't think you can just go out in the streets and start gunning people down. And I think he understood my point that some of these are just kids who caught up in the moment. A lot of times these discussions have more impact after the fact, like when it's not happening. You know, you go back and you replay it in your mind or you watch it. Doug, you gave a softer interview than you do for theists. I get this a lot. That's not true. Some theists I'm really hard on. Some theists I'm really soft on. I got documented evidence of that. Anybody disagree with that? That there's some theists, like I'm basically, you couldn't get more softer. And then I get accused of being too soft. That's just the way it is. You got to assume that at least a certain percentage of people will be unhappy. I believe it is good to hear and really listen to ideas that you don't believe. It's the only way to notice and evaluate your own presuppositions. Yes, Craig Lane, I agree. PineCreek is right. You're not going to convince anyone to stop being a conspiracy theorist by deplatforming them. That makes them more bold. And Jake the Snake, I'll go even farther than that. Some conspiracy theorists are correct. We know this through history, right? This is the thing that I want to get across, that if you value truth, you actually have to be open to the idea that this conspiracy theory is actually right. Now, I would say the vast majority of the time it's not the case, but you got to be open to the fact that maybe it's right. In order to value truth, you have to be open to the idea that you do not currently possess it. Dr. Bob seemed to imply that insurrection was justified. Do you agree with him? He would never use the word insurrection, I don't think. But I don't know what he would say. Like, what does it mean, justified? There's a bunch of people who went into the Capitol, he would say. How does that make sense? Is that a bunch of people going in exuberant in the Capitol? Is that justified? Evidence first, not just assertions. Yes, I agree, Jay Ritchie. But the point is, I think we have examples in history where the evidence comes out much later, and then people have to go, oops, we were wrong. Like a good example is the Biden son's case, the laptop. Conspiracy theory. 2 years later, 3 years later, oh, oops, right? Why is it Doug's job to push back on everything Price said? Is atheism a religion? We don't all have to agree on everything. Yes, Jacob Lee, we don't all have to agree on everything. And you know, even if there's some people who still are convinced that Bob Price is a homophobic, racist, whatever, let me encourage you to bring him on your channel and you talk to him. Don't just say, oh, he's a racist, everybody ignore him. No, if he's someone who's out in the public because of his vast knowledge of Christianity and other religions, you know, he's out there. And if that bothers you, bring him on your channel. Don't be scared. Zachary, you need to rewind. Am I going to open the room? Good question. No, I'm not, because I have to pick up my son and I don't want to get started on that from school. I will never allow him to be platformed on anything I have control over, says Caitlin Chloe. That shows a deficiency in you, Caitlin. I'm going to judge you. If there's a supporter of CRT, they're welcome on my show. If there's a KKK member, they're welcome on my show. If there's someone who believes trans people should burn in hell, I'll bring them on my show. If there's people who support trans rights, I'll bring them on my show. What is the over-under on the number of wokesters that rage quit your channel over this interview? Well, that's a good question. Let me bring up Social Blade. Let's see how many subscribers I've lost. I don't think I've lost anything, but I could be wrong. Live. Start at 15.1K. The problem is I have a huge advantage over a lot of YouTubers in that I'm not doing this for the money. So, huge advantage. Don't care. Doug would make a good judge. Yeah, well, I'm dead inside. Mostly. In order to be a good judge, you kind of have to be dead inside. Keep emotions out of it. Nothing you could say could cause you to lose me. Lose you or lose me? When you guys were talking about January 6th, Ray Epps should have been brought up. He isn't racist. I've listened to Dr. Bob for years on his podcast, The Bible Geek, and other venues, and he's always come against racism. If your audience would be kids and teens, would you still platform him? Well, I can't control my audience, but I think the answer is still yes. You could do a poll right now. Hey, good idea, Babe Martin. What poll should I do? I got a few more minutes. Let's do some polls. Do you believe Bob Price is a racist after this interview? Lean yes. Lean no. Don't care. Which is like, yeah. Polls up. Oh, nonsense, Doug. It's the first thing from the you being dead inside. We see right through you. Shh, clean seat. Be quiet. Don't let people know that I am a softie. It will ruin my image. PineCreek, you're never hosting Atheist Experience now. Why? What did I say? I agree with you, but what did I say that would cause the Atheist Experience not to allow me to host? Because I platformed Bob Rice? Or did I actually say something that goes against the code and conduct of the Atheist Experience? Asking for a friend. Mountain Show says, PineCreek, I built a cumulative case for Price being racist, independently attested by several eyewitnesses. Yes, yes. I see what you did there. Kid Rock tomorrow? That'd be fun. You said women have ovaries. I said overos? Did I really? Instead of ovaries? Or did you just misspell it? Yeah, I'll stand by that. Women have ovaries. Apparently Matt Dillahunty was in the chat and left when Bob said Orientals. I don't know why I'm laughing. That was funny to me. Bay Martin says it's not what you said, it's what you haven't. You didn't say this. Yeah. You got to push back on every sentence he says. Otherwise, you're not a representative of our movement. Mm-hmm. Well, look at this. We're almost at 200 votes already. Come on, you left-wingers. You got to press the top button more. Women aren't made by ovaries or uterus, but by genetics. Yes, true, Hillary. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. A woman is someone with the XX chromosomes. And did you know that it's men who make women? It's the male sperm, the XY, that determines every female. That's just science. But it's worded in such a way to give you a knee-jerk reaction saying, that's sexist. But it's true. So in a way, the Bible was right. Now, Eve came from Adam. Well, women are, it's the XY that, it's like every zygote is a man, a boy, a male, and then it turns to, some of them turn to female, right? Okay, well, so the poll results are in. Bob Price is not a racist, but a lot of people don't care. What other poll do you want me to run? You didn't address the actual argument regarding Price's racism. Of course, people don't think he's racist. Oh, you're talking about that he says things that can be construed as racist, right? Is that what you mean, Maxwell Edison? Can we get a poll on his election take? What? Be more specific, Jerome. Nice interview. I don't think you exposed Dr. Bob as racist, but you exposed him as a blind Trump apologist. Yeah, well, one thing I disagreed with Bob was when I asked him, is there anything you don't like about Trump? And he said no. If I had a red flag, I would have thrown it up in the air. But I think I actually planted a seed in him. Did you guys notice that? Like, I don't want my son to behave like this and this. And then I brought up that interview, that audio tape. And he agreed with me. And I think he was unaware of that video, that audio. You're welcome. Man, boy, and male are different terms. Yes, I know, Caitlin. But there is a strong, strong correlation. I realize you can have masculine women and feminine men, but there's a strong, strong correlation. One applies to biological sex, the other gender. I get it. But there's a strong, strong correlation. Poll question, is racism a binary? I don't like that question. What does that even mean? No, I think I'm right, Sebastian. You can fact check me. I don't think it's the other way around. I could be wrong. Should have asked him if he's pro-Putin like Trump. Oh yeah, we didn't bring up Putin, did we? Do you dislike Price more than you did before this interview? I think we're going to get the same results as asking him if he's racist. You should have played the clip of Trump on the bus. I brought it up. I showed it, but the way I have my XSplit set up, he wouldn't have heard it anyhow. But I brought up, like, didn't I bring up the text, like the closed captioning for him to see? But maybe you couldn't see it. I don't know. Poll if only white people can be racist. See, and there's a fundamental disagreement. Like, if you use one word and some people have different ideas what that word means, of course you're gonna have problems, right? So for certain people, it's impossible because racism involves power structures. It's impossible for a black person to be racist. Whereas myself and Bob would say no, because we define racism differently. So I would say a black person can indeed be racist. Why didn't you ask the people accusing Price of being racist? Maxwell, I invited the person who provided that list of a lot of the stuff to come on my channel, and she said no. I didn't say that during the live stream when I was talking, but true story. And the reason she said no is because I will never go on some type of cis male coddling racist show. Yeah, look at that. The tolerance, the pro LGBTQ community won't come on my show. And I invited them, but I'm willing to go on theirs if they invite me. I don't know how much I have to say, but we all start as female. So did I get it opposite? Are you sure? I guess I have to look it up myself now. Oh, you're right. All females, all human embryos, I said zygotes, start as life as females, as do all embryos of mammals about the second month. There you go. So really, Bob and I are female. Oh, we started female. We transitioned. So really, Bob and I are trans. See, someone leaning left is not laughing, but people on the right are laughing. There's a difference between values. My sister-in-law is actually related to Trump, like distant cousins. Oh, really? Depends upon what you can begin. Sperm is either X or Y, eggs or X only. Well, maybe I'm still right here, because I said it. Is it the sperm that flips the switch? I don't. Why are we getting into this biology business? More important things. I am on the left and left. I want a medal. There you go, Sandals. Great sense of humor. So, if you lean left or you kind of oppose the racism and homophobia that you think Bob Price is, make it a habit of saying something bad about a minority that you really think is bad if a white person would have done it. That will help you become less racist towards certain minority groups. I'm talking to the left right now, because I actually think the left is more racist than the right. Strike that from the record. Judge, no, I was not of sound mind when I said that. No, yeah, strike it from the record. Yeah, because I know there's going to be fallout. Do a poll on if we agree with Price on the election being stolen. Okay, I can do a poll on that. I know the results already. Well, I don't know. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna say 95% no. Was the election stolen? The last election. I predict 95% will say no, 5% say yes. Oh, I should add an I don't know option, right? Or I don't care. What time is it? Someone remind me to pick up my son and oh no, I got half an hour. We can resolve all this with one word, and the word is Jesus. There you go, Mountain Show. You're right. There's neither male nor female, Greek nor Jew. We're all in the same tribe together called Christianity. So generalizing about racism is only fun for Doug if it's about the left. Otherwise, it's contrarian smugness. I don't get it, PineCreek. I don't get your comment either. This is the problem. Like, we don't understand each other. How can we move forwards if we don't understand each other? Left are more racist, the dumbest thing you've ever said. Well, let me explain. I mean, when you feel sorry for people based on their skin color, that's racist. When you give us certain things based on skin color, like affirmative action, that's racist. And I think that those things are more prevalent than, let's say, 300 years ago when slavery was around, 200 years ago. Today. So in other words, it's a pendulum swing, right? Slavery, bad, bad, bad. Pendulum swings, affirmative action, still bad, bad, bad. And I say that partly just to get a rise out of people too, I'll admit, because there are people are so desirous to be viewed as virtuous. I'm a good person because I support and blah, 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 this group of people. And I'm a good person and virtuous because I support this group of people, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. I predicted 95.5. Although I had a I don't care category. So I'm actually pretty close. If you take out the I don't care. So that was a worthless poll. If all embryos were female, does that make all men protected class since we all... Yes, that's the joke I made, Royal Wolf, that even some people on the left laughed at. If all embryos are female, that means Bob and I, we transitioned. We're trans. See, that joke alone, some people can't laugh at. I'm persecuted like Chris Rock. You're describing Republican family values, morals, patriotism, etc. Yeah, I'm for family values. And I think a lot of people on the left are too. Poll, left is more racist than right. Actually, that's a provocative poll. I like it. I got to end this one first. that a good way to word it? Left is more. No, I'll do it this way. Which political side is more racist? I think that's a better way to word it. Then say left or right. Now, the definition of racism here is doing actions, making judgments based on people's skin color alone. Ask your community. Does it work? Is it working? I think as people get older, they realize that the other people in their tribe, the people outside the tribe, are not as evil as they thought they were, and that goes both ways. Oh yeah, I should have put that third option in, Fluffy. Good point. I guess if you believe it's both, they're equally racist, then you could say yes and no, right? Can you vote more than once? Yeah, I agree, Dustin. I think if you encouraged biracial marriage, and if everyone was the same skin tone, exactly the same skin tone in the United States, a lot of people on the left would be sad. It's like, who can we blame now? I think that's a bad definition of racist. Well, it's an incomplete definition. In fact, you can use any definition of racist you want to answer that poll question. What is affirmative action? Affirmative action is giving certain credences, certain benefits, certain credits to people of a certain disadvantaged group, a perceived disadvantaged group. How's that for an incomplete, insufficient answer? All my answers are going to be incomplete and insufficient because I'm not a bloviator. And I saw some question here about race versus culture. Was that you? Who was that? Yeah, when it comes to let's say getting into graduate school or undergraduate schools, the Asian culture has kind of destroyed or made painfully obvious that it's not about skin color. It's more about culture. Because Asians are not white. So there's something about the Asian culture that helps them get higher scores in SATs and entrance exams than the African American culture. Now, some people on the left, they hear that and they're a knee-jerk reaction racist, right? Maybe not. Maybe they say, oh, yeah, that's right. So if you think higher education is a good thing, which is debatable, then one can judge one culture better than another in accomplishing that goal. Racist should mean ideology that upholds institutional societal functions that hinder the progress of a specific group. Yeah, well, that's your opinion of what it should mean, right? Of course, Maxwell, I will never give you a sufficient answer. That's like why I kind of cringe when someone says, define CRT for me. Well, any answer I give is not going to be good. because unless I spend the next 2 hours and bring up at least 20 papers that are peer reviewed, you're going to say wrong, right? Yeah, that's the way it works. There are so many Asian cultures. You being racist is saying all Asians are the same culture. Well, unfortunately, when you do the census, there's only so many boxes. Korean, Vietnamese, Japanese, it doesn't work that way. They just have one box. That's Asian, right? But I agree with what you're saying, that certain cultures in Asia are way different than other cultures in Asia. I get you. Another way of looking at it is that certain systems and methods for educating are more tailor-made for certain cultures over others. Yeah, you're right, Kip. But unfortunately, for those cultures that are not tailored for it, they either have to adapt or die. Like, that sounds harsh, but it's not like we can go back to not making iPhones anymore. It's not like we can. It'd be very difficult to go back to not having technology the way we have it today. And so right now, the way life works is, if you want to get ahead, if you want to make money, if you want to be independent, you have to add value to society by either being a doctor, a STEM person. Like, I'm going to tell you the truth here. If you are in the soft sciences, or not soft science, soft social sciences, and if you're borrowing money to get educated in this, you're going to be in debt for a long, long time. You're not going to make a whole lot of money, and you're going to be dependent on others for help, and you're going to be a little sad. No, but there's exceptions to that, of course. You can be entrepreneurial and make a product that people want. Have you seen the classic interview with Don Lemon and Morgan Freeman? Apparently Morgan is a racist by today's. Yes, man, bear, pig. I think I know what you're talking about. Oh yeah, if I could quote Morgan Freeman, I could even quote Will Smith. I could quote many African American people right now. Don't tell you I'm quoting them, and you guys would say I'm racist for saying those things. And then when I let you know that I'm quoting African Americans, you'd say, "Oh." And to me, if you say one's racist, if a white person says it's racist, and if a black person says the exact same thing, it's not racist. I view you as a racist. There you go. But who cares? You might be a good racist. There's an interesting example of airline pilots from European countries consistently having more accidents because their culture didn't allow them to disagree with authority. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Black people can be racist. Yes, you're right. Under that certain definitions. Oh, what's the poll results? Which political side is more racist? 71-29. 29% say the left is more racist? What's wrong with you guys? Did you guys catch that? Unbelievable. How can that be? How can 29% of my live stream audience actually believe that the left is more racist? Disgusting. Do you and your wife hold the same views on racism? Yes. Just curious. You don't have to answer. Don't. Yeah, we do. There's nothing I've said here or said in the past that my wife would not be surprised or not support or. You got to keep in mind, Dustin, my wife is black, but not African American. So she doesn't come from that culture. White person, am I a white person? I mean, am I what? Hey, thanks, Steve. Because they're using the more common definition of racist, not yours. Maybe, Deepak. Is PineCreek's wife a Republican? Well, we're both Canadians, so. But if my guess is if my wife and I were to vote, we both would. I think we'd call each other independents, or we would view each other as independents, but we would mostly vote Republican, is my guess. And it's because we just lean towards lower taxation, smaller government, the basics. I still view the Republican side as more personal responsibility because of smaller government. I do think that certain welfare programs are like an opiate and it becomes addictive. And then once it's taken away, people revolt. I don't like people revolting. Oh, Tangelo, you're funny. If you don't know the answer to your own question there, then you haven't even begun. Arizona allows illegals to vote. You are a permanent resident, are you? They just passed a law, I think. I think it's Arizona, passed a law that you now have to show proof of citizenship in order to vote, which I'm for, by the way. I lean towards it should be harder to vote than easier. With no apologies. No, Jerome, we're not. Republicans are modern day theocrats, Doug. YouTube punk, you must be young. Tangelo, this is not a theistic live stream. This is more politics and stuff. Don't you know that voter ID is racist, Doug? Is my wife a young earth creationist? Good question. I'm quite sure no. But I haven't asked her, actually. Well, I hope not. Maxwell, quit repeating yourself. I heard you the first time. Didn't I even read it out? What do I think of Bob Price's Candace Owen takes? He only mentioned her a couple times, or once. I don't remember what he said about her. Which party plays Jesus and God card? I would say the Republicans do more, but the reason why I said you're young is because if you go, there's a lot of Southern Democrats. Like I'm a Canadian, right? But from my understanding, there's a lot of Southern Democrats who love God and country. And there's a lot of Republican. I know this is hard to believe for some people, but there's a lot of Republicans who are nuns, Nones, or even atheists. What is it? 1/3 of atheists are lean right. I don't read, Maxwell. I'm just a illiterate poor boy from rural Manitoba. It's a SCTV reference, Paul Sparks. Oh, that exam was faulty, Nico. I refuse to believe that evidence. I barely push back at all. Yeah. Do you think your personal responsibility spiel is applicable to individual policies, or is it just the nebulous generalization it sounds like? You realize individual personal responsibility and the word policies don't go together, right? Unless you wake up in the morning and say, here's my policy for how I'm going to live my life. Policy 1. I don't understand why some people get so, there's such a, I guess I do understand it. The reason why I think people push back on personal responsibility is because it makes them feel bad. Wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and say, things that happen in my life today is probably my fault. Start your day that way. You'll have a better life if you do. Promise. It is a good question, Tangela. If Biden and Trump were to run head to head today, who would win? Actually, that's a good poll question because it's less left right. It's like, if Trump versus Biden today, who would win? I like that question. I'm very curious what the answers are going to be. So if Trump and Biden, if the election was held today, who would win? I guess I got to be more specific. Popular vote? No, forget it. Whatever you think, popular or electoral, it's up to you. Just answer the question. And I wonder if people on the left can admit, if they do think that Trump would win, if they can press that button and admit it. That's one of the most important things I try to teach my kids, personal responsibility inspired by the Church of PineCreek. Yes, Aaron Aldridge. Yeah, and here's why. I really want to appeal to some people here. Let's say you're a trans person. And let's say another person says to the trans person, you're a blah, 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 something really bad, okay? Really negative. You got two trans people. They both hear the exact same thing. One trans person says, oh, that guy's a jerk, and walks away, and it's fine. Another person is like, and starts crying and bawling and needs to call their friends and have the support. And which person would you rather be? This applies to trans people, to gay people, to whatever. Black people, white people. Be the person who can shake it off. Just like, what's that singer's name? Shake it off, shake it off. Be that person who can take in negative things and say, it's like a vapor. Because you'll have a better life if you can train yourself to do that. And I will make another claim. You can train yourself to be that way. You can. If you can train yourself to bench press 300 pounds or 200 pounds, if you can train yourself to run 10 miles, you can train yourself to hear any negative thing a person can say about you and shake it off. Like Taylor Swift says. Taylor Swift, yes. Shake it off. Okay, I haven't looked at the poll results yet. But I'm assuming we're close to 200 votes. PineCreek for president. Whoa! Oh, I got to reevaluate my life if Otangelo thinks I should be president. Don't tell me the results yet. I haven't looked. I'll give it a few more minutes. That's my favorite poll question, though. I'm looking for something here. I'll bring up the poll results soon. What? Going on? There it is. Okay, poll results. Let's take a look, shall we? I'm excited. Whoa, interesting. Let me put this up on the screen. So out of how many votes? Only 174 people voted? For shame. We got double that watching. If Trump and Biden today, who would win? Trump 43, Biden 57. Can someone compare that to, is there any polls, like real scientific polls out there, like from Pew or anything? Or Gallup? Does that match? Someone can look that up for me. Yeah, I guess this poll could be correct if it's mail-in balloting. Thank you, Noah. I have a feeling Noah didn't mean it as a compliment. Poll question, who's going to downvote this video? I don't care. Yeah, that's true. Who would win, not who you voted for. It actually surprised me. I thought it'd be closer than this. Thanks, Zachary. Doug is wrong about the possibility Trump won. Really? The possibility, you're saying? It's not even possible. Sten Bland. That takes some omniscience. To say it's not even possible. Wow. You must be young. Trump will be in prison by 2024. When you say prison, do you mean the White House? Oh my goodness. Some people view the White House as a prison. Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, this is a really interesting live stream. I hope some people are ticked off by it. Have a great day, guys. Take care.